What's going on, everybody? It's Rich. What's up? It's WrestleMania week. And guess what? Behind the Counter and Matt Men the podcast are crossing streams. I decided to do a very special interview with artist, writer, comic book talent extraordinaire, Daniel Warren Johnson. Daniel Warren Johnson has risen into the ranks of comic book stardom from his creator-owned books, Extremity, Murder Falcon, onto DC with Wonder Woman Dead Earth, and now onto Marvel Comics with Beta Ray Bill. This was a fantastic interview. He's a really sweet dude. And guess what? We talk wrestling, we talk comics, we talk wrestling, we talk comics, and we talk more wrestling. This is a lot of fun, guys. I hope you dig it. Check it out. All right, guys, welcome to the show. Daniel Warren Johnson. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's great to be here. I don't think I've ever been on like a wrestling podcast before. It's always been comics podcasts. I'm really excited.
Me too, man. This is like we're doing like the crossover between like my Behind the Counter podcast and my Matt Men pro wrestling podcast, because it's WrestleMania week and both of us are we did not plan this, but we're both wearing Jushin Thunder Liger shirts. And I know you're a big Liger guy, right?
I am a huge Liger guy. Yeah, I mean, his look has been like seared onto my brain. I did a fan comic about it. So yeah.
That's pretty excellent, man. And like also the cover of your sketchbook from the 2020 Inktober. It was Inktober 2019 put into sketchbook form for 2020, right?
And that's funny because back then, like whenever I do fan art, like I don't really pay too much attention to like exactly how a character looks. I just try and get the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And that like painting of Liger is definitely more of a vibe now that I look back on it and like actually like compare it to his actual costume. It doesn't really look that much like it, but I got the energy, I think. So
oh, absolutely. I think especially like Liger has been through so many transformations over the last like who knows how many years, since like the 90s, you know. Like yeah, you nailed it. It's all good.
Dude, I was noticing on your podcast on the video version,
yeah,
you've got a Liger figure in the background. That's from Storm Collectibles, right?
Yes, sir. One of my favorite figures.
I have the 3 variants. I've got Black Liger. I have the original one they did, which is the red and white one, and with a little bit of gold. And I also have the newest version, which has like a little bit of blue on his horns. And like every single one of them was a necessary purchase.
I agree with that 100%. I only have the one. I'm kind of waiting for them to do the I think they're doing the retro Liger, and then I want
like
his
first appearance.
Yeah, where he's kind of got like almost like it's like a Mankind helmet kind of thing going. And if they do like a Kishin Liger, like unmasked with like the face paint, forget it. Like I'll have to get all those also.
Oh my gosh, let's email Storm Collectibles. Let's go.
Oh, they're putting out so much awesome stuff at this point. You know, like it's so cool. It's bound to happen.
Totally.
They're like some of my favorite figure makers too. So what got you into wrestling, man?
Dude, so I had my daughter Fiona in February of 2018. And, you know, for those of us that are parents, we know for the first few months, it's just kind of sitting around and tending and not going out a lot. Almost like a little bit like a COVID lockdown, but not as restrictive. You know, you're just kind of in the house, you're learning this like new thing. And there's a lot of downtime where you're just like in the house and you can't go anywhere. So I had been looking to kind of check out New Japan Pro Wrestling because some of my fellow comic book friends, namely JB Rowe and Ramon Villalobos, they love to draw this guy they called Tetsuya Naito.
Okay.
And so the first time I ever saw Naito was actually a drawing of Naito, and I just I saw a picture. Ramon was drawing him, and I was like, "Who the heck's that? That guy looks awesome." And my buddy Ramon was like, "Dude, this Tetsuya Naito, he's awesome. He's a wrestler." I'm like, "Wrestler, huh? Wow. Never seen a wrestler like that." It's like, dude, in Japan they go crazy over there. So I was kind of like, I would like Google image Tetsuya Naito every once in a while and just like be interested, and mostly in just the visual. And I was talking with my buddy JB, who's a big New Japan fan, and he kind of like gave me the lowdown. And as I was looking for kind of things to do in the house, like while taking care of Fiona, I was like, well, I guess now's a good time to try wrestling, just to kind of dip my little toe in the water and see what it's all about. And that was right when the G1 Climax in 2018 was starting. So that was in the summertime. 2018. And of course, I didn't know this at the time, but I'm watching like the pinnacle of like wrestling entertainment in the world.
Right.
The G1 in 2018, when Kenny Omega was still there,
Mhm.
when they had this, everybody knew like at the beginning of the G1 in 2018 that like Kenny was going to have to go up against Kota Ibushi. And there was a big deal there. And that was after the Golden Lovers had already been reunited earlier in the year, which I didn't know about. So all these kind of like through lines and trails and stuff that I didn't know, but I was like, I love watching Tetsuya Naito. And I would just kind of follow Naito around the
Mhm.
G1, and I got to see him wrestle these other guys and these other looks. And then it wasn't until I saw Tomohiro Ishii versus Kota Ibushi in the G1 Climax 2018. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that match, but
Oh
like
yeah.
that, Ibushi doesn't really do the crazy stuff anymore, but he did like
Mhm.
jump off the rafter or like the second floor onto Ishii, like he did a
Yeah.
moonsault. And I'd never seen anything like that before, and I never seen guys like hit each other so hard in wrestling. I never really watched wrestling ever before in my life, and so for that to be the exposure, like it was that match that did me in, and I just kind of became a fan from there. So it wasn't even like a Naito match that really got me to dive in. It was actually Ibushi and Ishii. So thanks, guys. That was the match. That's like it's still my favorite match of all time. It's the match that still inspires me to this day. So
That's awesome. Like,
and I
so
was hooked. Yeah.
I can imagine, like, if I always said, like, if people want to, like kind of like you said, dangle their toe into like the wrestling waters, I would always suggest New Japan. But I think it's fascinating that you, never really having watched wrestling, saw a drawing that your buddy made, your contemporary, and then said, I gotta watch this. And you, like you said, you started at the top with G1 2018, and then I'm assuming you're kind of working your way back through the catalog. Now, talk to me as a fan, like, how when you started doing the research, how mind blown were you? Because like you mentioned the Golden Lovers, like I was a big fan of that story. I had like tears when they reunited and all that. Such a cool like moment in wrestling history. I want to know what's it like as an adult fan to say, I kind of want to look into like more of this stuff, and like your reactions to that.
Yeah, so as New Japan fans know, in the normal times, after the G1, there's kind of this like deep exhale in like New Japan wrestling, and you kind of have like World Tag League, which is fine usually,
Mhm.
but um that was kind of happening. So and there was there's a lot of wrestling in the G1. So I was kind
Oh
of
yeah.
taking a break, and I was like, man, I wonder what America has to offer as far as wrestling. And I
Mhm.
start like doing some research and like checking out the WWE, and I'm like, wow, this is night and day.
Oh
This
yeah.
is
Yeah,
like
100%.
nothing. I mean, some of the looks are
Mm.
cool, but like it just had to be totally honest, it just did not appeal to me at all. So I just kind of
Yeah.
passed on it, and it was kept following the arcs in like New Japan, and I was going back a little bit, but even then, like the announcers would sometimes allude to stuff, but like it there's so even if you just watch New Japan, there's so much backstory. I almost like didn't know where to begin. And
Right.
this is kind of before that I really knew like a lot of people who could say like you have to watch this match, you have to watch this match. And um from there on, I was just kind of following the people that I liked in New Japan and kind of seeing where the stories were going. And
Mhm.
that's right around the time that AEW was like beginning to start. Um and then when the wrestlers from New Japan came and made AEW, I just followed them over because I
Right.
really wanted like some sort of a product in the States that I could get excited about.
Yeah.
Which no offense to any fans, but the WWE just doesn't do it for me. Um, and so I've been there not since the beginning because I didn't go to All In, but I was at All
Mhm.
Out in 2019, and that was the first. You're gonna laugh at me. That was the first live wrestling show I'd ever been to.
Oh no, that's incredible. I'm not gonna laugh at you at all. I think that's awesome. Again, you're starting from the top
Yeah.
and going to all out. So what was that experience like for you? Like seeing I'm hard pressed to remember who was on the card, but I remember it being like a really fantastic show.
It was a fantastic show. It felt so that at that time they had announced that there was going to be a TV show that was going to be
Mhm.
happening. There was this energy, that I think was carried over from All In, which I'd done my research on
Mhm.
and stuff, and there's this like really powerful energy in a building that I didn't have anything to relate it to, but I felt like there was something really special happening, and seeing these matches that were going on, people were really laying it on the line.
Mm.
And I remember seeing Kenny versus Pac, which got was done quickly because John Moxley had to pull out because of his infection in his elbow. It was going to be Moxley versus Kenny,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to like redo that. And that was an amazing match. And the fact that Kenny lost, the whole building was in complete shock. And then the Young Bucks did that ladder match with the Lucha Brothers, and
Oh my God, yeah.
I didn't know that like I was watching basically the best ladder match in the history of pro wrestling.
Yeah, you picked a great time to become a wrestling fan, by the way.
I did. And you know what it kind of reminds me of? Like
Mm.
the kind of whole birthing of AEW and like whatever you want to call it, revolution, whatever.
Mhm.
It kind of reminds me of like the birth of Image Comics back in like the early 90s.
That's a great
And
juxtaposition.
yeah, it's just like so I know there's a lot of differences and stuff, but like
Mm.
just the energy of like feeling like there's something new, there's something exciting happening,
Mhm.
and it's shaking the foundation of the status quo that we've just gotten used to in the States. So yeah, man, it was a special time. It was so cool. And actually, one of the guys that I work with at Skybound, I was just like, by the time I was able to like really invest in it, I wasn't able to get a ticket. So I messaged
Mhm.
him, who I knew he was going. This is Sean Kirkham over at Skybound
Mhm.
Entertainment. And I was like, yo, Sean, any chance you have a spare ticket? He's like, let me see what I can do. And he hooked me up with a guy who traveled all the way from California, who owns a comic book shop in
Mhm.
Southern California, who got me who gave me one of his tickets. So I was like, it was like friends hooking me up. I was with friends. The energy was great. I got to see some of my favorite wrestlers ever and see some of the best matches I've ever seen. I mean, life changing. Honestly, that's just what it is. Life. I mean,
No,
I don't want to
that's
sound too like. It's just huge. It's a huge thing for me to see.
no, not at all. Like I agree with you 100%. A couple of years ago, me and my buddy, like arguably, I want to say like from my experience, like that was life changing. Was we went to my buddy got really good tickets for that New Japan Ring of Honor split show at Madison Square Garden.
Was
Yeah.
that where Ibushi and Naito went at it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Okada won the title back from Jay White.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, and also we got to see Muda and Liger in the ring together. Like Muda came out, like Muda was the surprise of the night. And I was sitting there and like me and my buddy were just like, yo, this is kind of the best right now. Like I never want this to end, you know? So I agree with you. Like when you say like, oh, this is like a life-changing event, I'm there with you, brother. Like, and plus like where I live, we take the train that drops you off right underneath Madison Square Garden. So it's cool. Like it's the most convenient thing in the world too, you know. It's really dope. It's funny that you mentioned the Image Comics AEW thing. I think that's such an interesting take on this stuff. In your head, do you ever play like who's the Todd McFarlane of AEW? Like Kenny's Todd.
Well, you know, like you get to know, I know a few of the Image founders, and you get to kind of know their attitudes and like their vibe. And I don't know anything about the Young Bucks or Kenny or anybody, and I kind of like it that way. So I have no idea.
That's hysterical. I think.
But
go ahead.
I mean, I think I just kind of like to approach it just from a fan perspective, and just like the less I know about the wrestlers, the better.
You know what? I think that's a good, like, again, you're like a relatively new wrestling fan, you know, like you're a huge wrestling fan. That is the best attitude to have. Like pretty much like the least you know about the guys you watch on TV, probably the better. I feel like that's like an old school mentality. Also, like not even don't meet your heroes. It's almost like don't meet the wrestlers, you know?
Yeah. I've learned the don't meet your heroes lesson the hard way in comics. So I just have no desire to repeat it with wrestlers.
Oh, that's a conversation for something else, man. I also do feel like there should be more of a crossover between wrestling fans and comic book fans, you know, and I'm always surprised that not that there isn't, but I'm always surprised that it's not more like powerful, you know?
I don't know. I when I did the WrestleTober, which is like for October in 2019, I just did a sketch of a wrestler for every day of October. And I had quite a few of my comic book fans like reach out and be like, I didn't know you were into wrestling. This is so awesome. And it's hard for me to tell just through like comments on social media how big the pool is of how many people are in both kind of sections, but it seems like there's some energy there.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of gotten me inspired to maybe do a pro wrestling comic at some point.
That would be cool. Like, what would it be like an original story, or would you kind of want to get on the phone with Tetsuya Naito and be like, hey, listen, but I got a pitch for you?
You know, it's funny. So my buddy that I mentioned, Sean Kirkham over at Skybound, we actually got together and we like had an informal pitch that we were trying to pitch to AEW to do their comic books. And you know, we weren't really able to bend anybody's ear. We couldn't really convince anybody that we were serious, so we couldn't get in a room with anybody who actually had like,
Oh
you know,
boy.
deciding power. You know, also they're a brand new company, and comic books, of course, not exactly high on the list of priorities. But I have definitely thought about it. We definitely thought of some concepts and ideas that we were ready to pitch to AEW, but just didn't end up happening. And then the more that I thought about it, kind of going back to the don't meet your heroes vibe, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do a pro wrestling comic, I think I would thrive if I just was able to make it exactly in my, you know, with the vision that's in my head. I would love to help co-create a story and like help some of these wrestlers like make something special, but man, that's a lot of work. And a lot, you know, more collaboration is more work, which can be really rewarding. But man, I've got some great ideas up here that I think I can execute very well.
That's awesome. And plus, like, you know, like I think you as an artist writer have such a unique like career, at least from my opinion, you know, like where, you know, your style is so dynamic and fluid. I feel like there's, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of anime influence.
Yes, definitely.
You know, and like it really
Huge.
comes across the page. It's very, very awesome, you know, like powerful stuff. To do a wrestling comic with that after seeing the Inktober stuff, I'm already sold. Like you already have my money.
You have no idea. You know what's funny too is like when you think about new comic book projects and new like, you know, a fantasy comic, science fiction, crime comic, there's all these logistical things that you have to draw that you just don't think about in the moment. And then when you're in the midst of it and trying to figure it out, you're like, oh crap, this is like really hard. Like with fantasy comics, like you got to start drawing more than one kind of tree. Otherwise that shit gets boring. And this is like really small background stuff, but like, dude, I had never thought like how hard it is to draw a German suplex until like I actually started trying to draw a German suplex. Like, how you have to like make it dynamic, like you said, and exciting, but you also have to like, for somebody who maybe has not watched wrestling before, like it has to be clear.
Right.
So you're trying to marry those two things where it's like very clear storytelling while also like making it dynamic, where you're like, oh, that feel like it really hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did. Well, I'll bring up another one of the pieces from that sketchbook. I think it's the Kenny Omega over the top rope tope.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel like you nailed that so perfectly, man.
Thank
and
you.
Like you can feel like the vibe and the rhythm and the jump, but also as a fan, seeing that's like one of my favorite moves in his arsenal. You know,
I think I was inspired by that because I was going back in the archive of New Japan's you know, many matches, and I had never seen the Kenny Omega Okada Wrestle Kingdom, the first time they met at Wrestle Kingdom, that main event, where he does that tope and he just looks like he's flying in the air. It's just like, it's insane the air time he gets, and also the fact that the Wrestle Kingdom like ring is on a riser.
Yeah,
he just has a long way to go, and it's like larger than life. And if anything can be larger than life easily, it's comic books and like illustrations. So that it's man, that was fun. I love
that's
drawing
really cool.
that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like when he goes over the top rope, time stands still for like a little bit. You know,
So cool.
It's so ridiculous, dude. It's so rad. And like you also have like a lighthearted approach to your wrestling fandom, clearly. Yeah, like you can't be negative at all. I feel like it just doesn't work, you know.
I mean, part of it is like it's still pretty new and fresh to me, and
Yeah.
you know, as you go through life and you take things in, and you have these like phases where you might be into one thing or another, and especially when, you know, working in professional comics and like the entertainment arts, like I'm taking in so much stuff because that's just what I have to do to like make stuff. You know, not to say that I don't still love science fiction, but like, you know, you find yourself like gravitating towards other forms of media, and
Mhm.
you're trying to find new things that are going to inspire you and help you with maybe telling you stories. And wrestling has definitely been one of those things where I felt like it's really kind of inspired me creatively in a way that, maybe genre fiction has. I still love genre fiction, but
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? It's just something new. It's like a new
Yeah, yeah.
flavor,
No,
something to
absolutely.
introduce. Yeah.
Where it's like I think what you're trying to say is like even the old stuff is tried and true, but it kind of gets to a point where it just kind of, no matter how good it is, it will mush together.
And if you think about it, like, you know, I how do I say this? Like, I know that I'm a talented guy. I could kill this, like a pro wrestling comic. Like
Absolutely.
I could sell this. Like I could make this work.
uh,
I know my own abilities, and I'm very confident in what I'm gonna make.
yeah, I think so too, man. So I messaged you, I think last week, a couple weeks ago, about the new design for the
Oh,
IWGP title, and you responded, "I want to like it."
look, I'm out here. I am rooting for New Japan. I wish them the best, but holy crap, that belt. I want to have a good attitude, but I can't
Mhm.
have a good attitude about this one. I cannot let this one stand. I mean, I can't. Uh, I was rooting really hard for Naito to win that Intercontinental belt back.
Okay.
While everybody was kind of complaining about the booking, I was kind of like, I kind of like that Naito knows that he's kind of a silver medal guy.
Mhm.
And he's kind of fighting for that second spot in a way that like he's almost accepting who he is. Like he's always going to be the underdog. And instead of trying to shoot for the stars, he's almost like coming into his own, and like his own arc would be almost like completed with like establishing that
Mhm.
reign with the Intercontinental title. So when he lost, I was friggin' crushed. I was so sad. And then they unveiled this belt, and it just added insult to injury. It's like, who's going to go after that belt? I want everybody to go up to that belt, just throw it on the ground and be like, just leave this here. You can wrestle me, and then you can take it out of this dirt. Oh my God.
Kind of what Naito used to do when he had the IC belt. He would just toss it into the ring and break it.
Exactly.
Now, so I kind of want to ask you this too, because my thought, like when I saw that belt initially, and I've mentioned this on Matt Men before, I wasn't a fan. I
Okay.
was like, I don't like the way Ibushi looks with this belt. It's weird, and that's just like it looks like a vector drawing that's not done.
Yes, totally.
But when Osprey won the belt, and you see the promo pictures with him and that new belt, I'm like, aesthetically, this belt looks so much better on him
Mm.
than it does on Ibushi. And I don't know if it's a work rate thing or I'm just trying to lie to myself to see what the deal is. It's also bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah. I think part of it is like, as a visual guy and as an artist, I'm attracted to good design,
Right.
and that IWGP heavyweight title, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
It
Like
really doesn't. Yeah.
whenever I see this new title, I'm just gonna think about how much I miss the old one. And
Mhm.
for as like, for as old school and like resistant to change New Japan is, I wish that this had stayed there. I want them to grow in other ways, and I wanted this to stay the same. So maybe it'll keep growing on me. I mean, you still have my $9.99 a month, Japan, but
Right.
man, oh boy, that belt. Woo! I'm still kind of waiting for it to be a work.
Mhm.
Like I want Naito to like win it and just take a jackhammer to it. It's like, give me back my IC belt.
You never know, man. They may go the route of WWE in the 90s with like a gimmick belt. Like because I think they're trying to buff the stats on the belt, where like the old lineage is gone. Kota
Mm.
Ibushi is the first champ of this lineage, which is great because when you're the first, nobody can take that away from you. And then having Osprey feud with Shingo and then Okada at some point. And I really do think that belt is going to end up with Moxley at some point.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like at some point within the next like not 2 years, but within like 18 months, I think Mox is going to be the IWGP champ.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
It's
I look,
mind
I think
blowing.
yeah, dude, I didn't even think about that. I think probably because it's hard for me to, like, because of the pandemic, I haven't
Mhm.
really seen foreign talent except for like kind of summer and late last year
Mhm.
in like junior tag league. I saw some stuff, but or best of super juniors, but like I haven't really seen any foreign talent in Japan in a long time. So like that is so outside of my radar.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say when Kenta showed up on Dynamite, I absolutely lost my shit. I lost
Oh,
my
forget
shit,
it.
man.
Yeah, my wife was very upset because I was yelling at the TV for like 2 weeks straight. Just like I was like, oh, he's gonna go to sleep. Everybody, look at him go. It's hard. It's hard not like I'm gonna be 40 this year. It's still hard for me not to have that like exuberance when I see something I like in wrestling. You know,
I have two guys that come over every Wednesday and we watch AEW.
that's awesome.
And I kind of, one is like a lapsed WWE fan
Mhm.
who is now kind of getting it back into wrestling through AEW. And my other friend has never watched any wrestling in his life. And he just
Mhm.
likes how much I'm into it. And I've gotten him hooked on it. So we watch it together and, we saw that happen. And of course, they don't necessarily know the Bullet Club history. They don't necessarily know who Kenta is, so he shows up on screen and I'm almost in tears. Like, I cannot believe it. The forbidden door is gone. It's been broken open. And they're like, what? And they're just basically like looking at me like a specimen in a lab. Like, who is this man?
Yeah.
But then that makes it that much more like celebratory when we've been
Mhm.
watching the arc of AEW and then seeing like that friggin' Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match, which
Oh
was
my God.
insane.
Yeah, dude, that was fun. What? How did you feel about that? What was your reaction to that whole thing, man?
I mean, I had always had the opinion that like AEW's women's roster was awesome,
Mhm.
and if anything, just like hampered by pandemic and like losing a lot of talent to going back to Japan or wherever,
Mhm.
and also injury because I'm a huge Chris Statlander fan. So man, I've just been waiting for them to just kind of come into their own because it's there, and man, I feel like it's there. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm really, really, really excited about the women's roster, and it feels like with that match, like you put on a match like that, and every single other wrestler, like I can only equate this to comics, right? You see
Mhm.
somebody come out with a bomb ass comic like that, calling everybody at a table, be like, listen up. This is what I am doing. This is what I'm bringing to the table. And then everybody else looks at each other and be like, I got to step it up. I mean, that's just what it feels like to me. I just like, it was such an incredible match. It felt like it felt like a, no pun intended with other AEW stuff. It felt like a paradigm shift. It literally did. It felt like the changing of something. And it was so cool to see. And I can't wait to see more. I mean, I'm now jazzed for almost every women's match that is on the card when AEW Dynamite drops on Wednesdays. I'm just jazzed.
Absolutely. Like I find myself hard pressed to really not relax while I'm watching like Dynamite every week. And even like Elevation, I've been like going in and out of it, like listening to Paul White on commentary is pretty cool. And then like the dark stuff I'll catch up on. But I like how you said that's one of those matches that puts eyes on the product. It's like you're slamming down a comic on the table saying like, beat that motherfucker, and I feel like you're the guy and listen, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt, but I feel like you're the guy to do it, going from Wonder Woman Dead Earth to Beta Ray Bill #1. Dude, it's ridiculous. Come on. Like, so what you're talking about.
Well, I can only speak to other artists that have done the same to me. I'm thinking like James Heron dropping some of the BPRD stuff. Like when I was still teaching, before like I even had comics, I'm thinking of seeing some of the ways that like Wes Craig tells like action storytelling in Deadly Class. I'm thinking of like Luther Strode pages from Trad Moore. These are obviously more comic book shout outs here, but like these are the kinds of things where like it's so good it keeps you up at night because you're like, how can I? It just makes you want to rise to the top. It makes you want to do better. So I just like, I'm standing on the shoulders of many giants.
So I'm glad you came on, man. And there was also like a little note that I made too, saying like, oh well, he's got Beta Ray Bill #1 came out last week. Beta Ray Bill's hammer is called Stormbreaker. Will Ospreay's finisher is called Stormbreaker. Let's make this happen.
I will say that in issue 2, I have Beta Ray Bill definitely giving somebody a clothesline rainmaker
right
in a
on.
bar. And he definitely at some point will give Thor a German suplex.
Oh, I can't wait.
You heard it here first.
I'm down with it, man. I got a couple more and then we'll wrap it up, man.
Let's do it.
All right. Non-wrestling related, non-comic book related. What is the sandwich of your dreams?
Okay. Have you ever been to this place in Portland, Oregon called Lardo?
No. It sounds
Okay.
awesome.
It's a sandwich place in Portland, and you know, I got to give them a shout out. They have the best sandwiches I've ever had. So any sandwich from Lardo, I mean, that's going to hit the spot right there. I mean, I want to go back to Portland just to go have sandwiches there like every day for lunch. Um, I used to go every year when like Comic-Con was going on, but I will be back, and I'm thinking about those sandwiches. Thank you, Lardo.
Oh, forget it, man. That sounds awesome. Yeah, when the world opens up, like I think people are just gonna go to like their favorite food spots first, you know, and especially like during because you do all the cons, so like you probably sample like all the goods from all the different cities.
Oh, I do. And I know enough people in the industry now that I can like go to someone that I know lives in a town that I'm visiting and be like, tell me where to go. So there's like, I basically have like my sandwich spots for a lot of different cities now.
That's awesome, dude. All right, man. So like, thank you again for coming on. Where could everybody find you? Where could everybody pick up your art, your commissions? What do you got coming out? All that beautiful stuff that we're going to plug.
Yeah. So, the newest thing that just dropped is Beta Ray Bill issue 1. It's coming out of the pages of the King in Black storyline and Thor, and in Venom and Spider-Man with Donny Cates at the helm of that. But you don't need to read any of those stories to enjoy Beta Ray Bill #1. I made sure of that. It's really fun, galactic kind of sci-fi vibes, but in the Marvel universe. I'm really happy with how issue 1 came out, and I think you will too. You can get that at any comic book store you go into right now. For all other stuff, commissions, and so on, you can find me on social media at Daniel Warren Art, or just Google my name and you will find me. I don't know. It's pretty chill, just having a good time, drawing a lot, and getting some work done. And happy to be on a podcast like this.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it, man. Man, that was a lot of fun. Daniel, we would love to have you back on whenever you want to chat more wrestling, comic books, guitars, and just all kinds of rad stuff, man. Thank you very much again. And guys, please tune in to all our WrestleMania coverage on Matt Men Podcast, on all our channels, YouTube. Follow our Twitter, follow our Patreon. You know the links. We're going to have some fun this week, folks. See you soon.